Let's paint some Olympians from the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics, more specifically, members of the Norwegian Biathlon team. Towards the end of the 2022 Olympics, I decided I wanted to celebrate the Norwegian gold medalists, which resulted in a series of 9 images. This image is all about celebrating the Norwegian Biathlon team that did really well during the 2022 Winter Olympics. In total, they gathered 14 medals, 6 of which were gold. Considering how well the team did, I ended up creating 3 different images to celebrate the biathlon team. And this was the final image, and it consists of elements from the previous 2, as they won the mixed relay where both men and women compete together. For those who aren't aware what biathlon is, it's a sport that combines cross-country skiing and rifle shooting. Personally, I find it to be one of the more interesting winter sports, as everything can change if the athlete misses one of the targets. As this is all part of an image series, I made sure to use the same colour palette throughout. And I have to admit that the colours seem slightly randomly selected, which is only partially the case. Most of the colours were based on the colours of the different outfits the athletes were wearing, which varied depending on the different disciplines. That said, I also added some additional colours like a uniform skin tone and some accent colours. I chose to limit my colour palette this way because I think it works really well in a series, and it often means that it's easier for me to make sure that there's enough contrasts in the images that I'm working on. This image is a little bit different to the other ones I've shared. You see, it also consists of elements from 2 previous images. And while I've chosen to show this image over the other 2, I've decided to share the process behind the elements I used in the image. So some of the time-lapse might look a little bit choppy here and there. I used plenty of different reference photos for these images, and while there were a lot of new photos taken of the athletes during the 2022 Beijing Olympics, I also used photos from previous competitions. The most important thing for me when selecting reference images for these paintings was to make sure I viewed references of the athlete I was painting, because every athlete's body is slightly different to the next, and sometimes they even have slightly different techniques. This doesn't mean that I didn't look at references of other athletes in the same poses, because I did, but the main reference would always have to be of the athlete in question. If you have any questions about my process, let me know in the comments. This includes asking me to elaborate on specific parts of my process or a specific image, or things like how I'm selecting my colours and topics, how I select and use reference images, or more info about the brushes I use. I'd love to share more about how I work, but it's a lot easier to share these things when I'm aware of the information people are seeking out. So please, add your questions to the comment sections, and I'll do my best to cover these topics. For these images, I was also using several different brushes, and in fact, my usual go-to brush wasn't used here at all. The half-tone brush I'm using is a default brush from Procreate called Honey Eater. It's the same one I've used in several of my previous images and one that I used a lot in 2022. I've ended up creating my own variations of this brush as well, as I needed one with slightly bigger dots. So, if you find a brush you really like, but there are a few things you would like to change to make it work better for you, then consider going into the brush settings and tweak it slightly. However, I would highly recommend duplicating the brush first. That way you make sure that you're not messing up any of the original settings. Thank you so much for watching. More of my process videos are up on my YouTube channel, and check out my social media accounts and my website for more of my work.